Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Atomic Structure Part 1. Miss Burkers here will be taking you through this booklet. Hopefully your teacher has provided it for you and you have this open with you, either in a paper copy or in a digital copy. So you'll notice Lesson 1 is titled Naming Elements and Their Symbols. You should have already gone through the periodic table and elements already in previous years. So hopefully most of this should be a bit of a review with just some new bits added on. So the first thing I want you to notice is here the keywords at the top of the page. You'll see the keywords atom, element, periodic table, symbol, group, period, and atomic number. As I'm saying these words, some of them may seem a little bit familiar. So what I'd like you to do is grab a piece of paper and write down all of these words, as well as any definitions that you might remember. If you don't remember the definitions, that's fine. We'll get through them through the course of the lesson. So pause the video now, write down those terms as well as their definitions, and if you don't know the definition, just leave a space for it. All right, so now that you've written down some of those definitions, I'd like you to move on and give this knowledge check a try. Notice that it is all true-false, so there's no reason why you shouldn't have something for each one of the questions. Just give it a go, pause the video, and see what you can remember. All right, so you should have paused the video, and now we are back, and we're going to go through the answers to this knowledge check. So the first one is actually false. You may remember that the smallest substance known to man is actually the atom. Everything that has mass is made from atoms. This is true. Atoms can be different sizes. This is also true. Atoms can be seen through a light microscope. This is false. The light microscope is a type of microscope we have in the classroom, which atoms cannot be seen through. Letters are used as a symbol for an element. This is true. And all elements have the same symbol is false. We wouldn't be able to tell the difference between magnesium and manganese if they had the same symbol. There are approximately 100 different elements is true. And all elements are not metals. So this is false, the statement here. All right, now to get into the actual lesson. It says here, all substances are made from atoms. You may remember that the more scientific term for substances is actually matter. So all matter is made up of atoms. So that's anything that has mass. So that includes whatever device you're using to watch this right now, to the food you eat, to even yourself, is all made from atoms. An atom is the smallest part of an element that can exist. You might remember that all the elements are found on the periodic table. And pretty well all the science classrooms have a periodic table hanging in the front or the back, somewhere there, so you've all seen one before. So there are about 100 different elements. Depending on the periodic table you look at, some have up to 118. The elements are shown on the periodic table, as I've said already. So that is that big table that you've seen pictures of everywhere that shows all the different elements. So you will have noticed that there are over 100 different little boxes. So an element is any material that you can find on the periodic table, and each of them are made up of only one type of atom. So that, for example, if you look closely at your periodic table, you will see that gold is on the periodic table. So for example, if I have a ring made out of pure gold, that means that if I were to take a piece of that ring and cut it in half, and then cut that piece in half again, eventually I'd get to a point where I can't cut it in half anymore. At that point, that would leave me with one gold atom. Now we can't physically actually cut it down that small, but it is something to think about. Right? So each element is represented by a chemical symbol. You won't find, for example, Go on the periodic table. Gold is a U. All right, some of the other ones make more sense, such as O, which will represent oxygen, Al, representing aluminum. All right, but some of them don't quite match up, and it comes from different words for that, such as the Latin word or the Greek word or something along that lines. Each element has a different symbol. This is how we tell them apart. All right, so this is how we know the difference between, for example, as I said earlier, manganese and magnesium, or even gold and silver, iron. These are all elements on the periodic table that all have a different symbol. You'll notice, looking closely, that the first letter is always uppercase or a capital. Some of them have two letters, so the second one is always lowercase. So if you look down here at this periodic table here, you'll see all of these different elements. So for example, potassium has you would think potassium P, it does not actually start with a P. The symbol for potassium is a K. So it has only one letter, so it is a capital letter. If we go over instead to aluminum, Al, that makes sense with the name, but you'll see it's a capital A and a lowercase l. If I were to write aluminum with a capital A and a capital L, that would be incorrect. And on a test or an exam, you wouldn't get the mark for that. Or if I were to write it as a lowercase a and a lowercase l, that is again incorrect and you wouldn't get the mark for that. So you need to make sure that it is always a capital and then and I just made that mistake myself, a capital and a lowercase. Okay, so you must always write the symbols correctly. Even if you have the letters right, if they're not capital and lowercase as they're meant to be, you will not get the mark for that. All right, so what I would like you to do now is going through and looking at these elements outlined in red. So I'll highlight them here to make it even more clear. So we start here with 1 of hydrogen, and then you'll see underneath, they're all numbered, and the numbers go up 1 by 1. We'll talk more about what the number on the top means. You might still remember that. But so these numbers here, pause the video, spend some time memorizing which one is which. All right. So hopefully now you have had a chance to start memorizing those first 20 elements, starting with hydrogen, ending with calcium. So now if you turn the page, you will see that there is a spot for you to test how well you've memorized them. If you only have a digital copy, it might be easier to recreate this table on another piece of paper. Otherwise, if you have a paper copy, you can just do it there. So you'll notice the atomic number goes 1 through 20, just as it did on the periodic table. And then the symbol. Noticing that if there is one letter, it's a capital, 2 letters, it's capital, first one capital, second one lowercase. And then the name, it has a space for the name. So what I'd like you to do is either on your paper or in your booklet, do your best to try to see how many you can remember. So with the symbol as well as the name. So I want you to pause the video, see how many you can get. And welcome back, Year 8s. Hopefully you have all of these answers correct. We'll go through them now, and I would like you to, with your green pen, I would like you to correct the ones that you have missed. It is totally normal to have missed quite a few of them. Getting their answers wrong now will help you get them right in the future. All right, so the first one, the symbol is a capital H and the name is hydrogen. Number 2 is helium, He. Number 3, lithium, Li. Number 4, beryllium, Be. Boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, neon, sodium, magnesium, aluminum, silicon, phosphorus, sulfur. I'm going to pause here for a second as there are two ways in which sulfur can be spelled. You can either have it with the F or it can be spelled with a PH. Either one is correct, so it doesn't matter which one you have, either one is correct. Cl for chlorine, number 18 is argon, K for potassium, and number 20 is calcium. So you should have all those in. Now I would like you to take a moment, cover those up, and try it 2 more times, correcting in between and making sure that you write in all the correct answers. Yes, I know your hand will get sore. However, it is the best way to get it into your head and memorized. All right, welcome back. So hopefully now you have a good understanding of the first 20 elements and where they fall in the order on the periodic table. So we will talk a little bit more about the periodic table and how it's set up at the moment. So the modern periodic table, which is the one that we see everywhere today, we will be talking more about the history of it in a few lessons, was formulated by a scientist called Dmitry Mendeleev. This is a name you'll come across more often, and so it is a name you'll need to know, in 1896. So over 150 years ago, he was able to put the elements in the order they are today. So you'll see that the periodic table is in rows and columns. So the rows he called periods, and we still call them that today. Remember, rows go side to side across. And he used columns, which he called groups, and the columns are what go up and down. All right. So he also placed the elements in order of their atomic mass. So the heaviest element is at the bottom right. The lightest and smallest element is at the top left. So the simplest and smallest element is hydrogen, which is found at the top. All right, and just like we read a page, starting from the top right and going across, that's the same way we read the periodic table, from left to right, and then from left to right, and then top to bottom. So if I go back to, here is a simplified version of the periodic table. This is just the first 20 elements that you need to know. So you'll see in group 1 is the first column of the periodic table. So usually hydrogen is shown as either in group 1 or in its own area. And we'll talk, and you will learn more about why that is in the future. But for now, you need to know hydrogen is either in group 1 or on its own. And then lithium, sodium, and potassium. So hydrogen is the smallest of these. Potassium is the largest. So as we go down, they get bigger. And the same with, for example, group 3. We have boron and then aluminum. Aluminum being bigger than boron because it's further down. So you'll see there's also then the rows, the periods. The rows across like this. So period 1 only has the 2 elements in it, hydrogen and helium. Period 2 has 8 elements, lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, and neon. So as you go across, they get bigger again. So lithium is the smallest one, neon is the largest one from this period. And then we go down to the next period and the last one. If you're looking at a full periodic table, you'll see there are 7 periods, but you will only need to know about the first 4 for now. You'll also see that the groups are labeled with their Roman numerals. So sometimes they're hard to read, so it might come in handy if you just write the regular numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 0. We don't have group 8, we do have group 0 along the top as well, because I know sometimes it can be really hard to know that that's a 7, but if you just write the number across the top, it makes that easier. So left to right, top to bottom, just like you would read the words in a book. The atomic number of each element increases by 1 each time. So those are the numbers we used in our memorization thing. All right, so the first group is called group 1. That's what we talked about. The next is group 2. And again, there is no group 8. Instead, we call it group 0. All right, and as I said as well, the first period only has 2 elements, hydrogen and helium. Period 2 has 8 elements, and so does period 3. So there are 3 other videos here that you can watch that explains it all a little bit more, and there's a little bit more fun graphics that I'm unable to do. So I would like you to go through, watch those videos, and then come back to this one, and we will have a look at these tasks. So pause this, open these videos in a new tab from your digital copy, and then we'll come back and try these tasks. So hopefully you've gone through these videos here and you have a better understanding of the periodic table. So now we can move on to our tasks. So task 1, complete the blanks in the table below to show how you would find elements using periods and groups. So if we look here, remember capital I is a 1. So in group 1, period 2, which element is in group 1, period 2? Remember that groups go up and down, and periods go across. So if we go to our periodic table, if we're in group 1, so the group 1 is this first group here, period 2. Remember here, hydrogen is in period 1, period 2, so group 1, period 2 will be lithium here. So in our table, for element name, we need to write lithium, and our element symbol is capital L, lowercase I. Right? So the next one, group III, which hopefully you remember is group 3, period 2. So again, go to your periodic table, wherever that is, and, 3, so group 3 is here. Remember, period 1 is this big open space here. So there's no element in group 1, or in period 1. The element in period 2 is here, is boron. So back to here. So we have boron, the name, and our symbol is just a capital B. Remember, if you've written it as a lowercase b, that would be incorrect. So now, with what we've just talked about, I would like you to try these next couple. Pause the video, give it a go, and then we'll go over the answers in a moment. So hopefully you've paused the video, you've gone through it. So I have a separate periodic table here. So group 5 and period 3. So for this one, you should have phosphorus. And I'm going to split it up so it fits in the box, which is element P. Vi is group 6. So group 6, period 2, we have oxygen, which is a capital O. Group 0, remember that's the one on the very right-hand side, period 1, so it's the one at the very, very top. So that is helium, which is He. II, which is group 2, period 2. You should have beryllium. Beryllium, which is a capital B and a lowercase e. Again, if you've written it like this, that would be incorrect. Or if you've written it, well, lowercase b, lowercase e would also be incorrect. So IV, 1 before 5, is group 4. So in group 4, period 2, we have carbon, which is a capital C. The mistake that most people make is forgetting to count period 1 as just hydrogen and helium. So they go 2, so they would have guessed that this one would have been silicon, and so on and so forth, that they go down an extra period. So just be careful with that. All right, along the same lines, keep in mind these are all in the first 20 elements, but find the element and write which group and period it is in. All right, so start with maybe looking for the element names and the symbols, and then I want you to look at your periodic table for the group and the period. So for example, from our task before, you should remember that Ca is calcium. So let's go to our periodic table and see where calcium is. So here I see calcium is element number 20. It is in group 2 because it's in the second column, and it's in period. Remember, we need to have our period 1 here, period 2, period 3, period 4. So it's in group 2, period 4. So we have group 2, period 4. All right, now I would like you to give a go for these last couple and then pause the video, give it a go, and we'll be back in a moment with the answers. All right, so hopefully you've worked your way through it now. So Cl would be chlorine, which is in group 7 and period 3. Again, remember, period 1 is only hydrogen and helium, so fluorine would be in group 2 and chlorine in group 3. So F is fluorine that we just talked about. And I know these boxes here are small. Fluorine, which is again in group 7, but in period 2. There is no element in group 7 in period 1. It just doesn't exist. So that's why we start with period 2. And A is sodium. That is a tricky one to try to remember, but it is one that you just need to remember. I don't know why sodium is Na, it just is. So sodium is in group 1 in period 3. Boron, the symbol is a capital B, is in group 3 in period 2. Again, it looks like it's in period 1 because it's on the top, but remember, period 1 is only hydrogen and helium. Sulfur here is spelt with an F. Sometimes you see it spelt with a PH. Either is fine. Sulfur, capital S, is in group 6 in period 3. And H is hydrogen. Just going out of the box now. Is in period 1. However, depending on what periodic table you look at, it's either not in a group or it's in group 1. Either of those answers would be correct because it is a bit of a strange one and it's not always considered in group 1, but we'll talk more about that in a future lesson. All right, so now that we've talked a little bit about the different groups and periods, I would like you to have a look at task 3. So, hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium. Hopefully you'll remember that our next element is boron. All right, and so you can use a periodic table if you need to, but see if you can do it from memory. Write down all the symbols of the first 20 elements of the periodic table. And then if you do them in order, it should be reasonably easy enough to write down their periods and their groups also from memory. However, if you do need to look at a periodic table, that is absolutely fine. So you think beryllium would be period 2, would be group 2. And lithium would be group 1. And you just get this from your periodic table, looking at it, going through them all. So pause the video, work your way through the first one. We'll go with the answers, and then we'll see if you can memorize where the rest of them are. All right, so hopefully you've had a chance to fill those all in now. You should have noticed a pattern going down. So 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 0, and then period 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0, and then 1 and 2. Some common mistakes that people have here is not having 0 but an 8. So I would like you to double check. I would also like you to double check that all your elements are written correctly. In a first letter is a capital and a second letter is a lowercase. So once you have that finished and you've checked that one, I would like you to cover it up and then try it 2 more times just to make sure that it is well in your head. Shouldn't take you too long, so just pause the video while you do that. All right, so now that you've had a chance to go through that 3 times and it should be well in your head now, I would like you to have a look at this knowledge and application check. So it's the last thing for this lesson. So just to see how much you remember, how well you understand it. So go through, pause the video, give these questions a go, and we'll check the answers in a minute. Now let's go through the answers, making sure that you're going through with your green pen that you have the correct answers. So again, the rows of the periodic table are called periods. It might help if I use my pen. The columns are called groups. The elements are placed in order of atomic number. The symbol for helium, we have a capital H and a lowercase e. Again, if you've written it capital H, capital H, capital E, that would be incorrect. Or if you've written it lowercase h, lowercase e, that would also be incorrect. So the symbol for potassium is the letter K. Again, a capital K, not a lowercase k. The symbol for phosphorus is a capital P. The number of elements in period 2, we have 8 elements in period 2. The element group 2, period 2 was beryllium. So if you've done the symbol, that's fine. Or if you've written out the name, that is also all right. Beryllium. In group V is 5, period 2 is nitrogen. Again, if you've just done the symbol, that's all right. Or if you've written out nitrogen. The element in group 0, period 2 would be neon. So Ne or neon. How many groups there are in the periodic table? There are 8 groups. Boron is in period 2, group 3. So it says group, and period. So group 3, period 2. If you've done it in the Roman numerals, that's fine as well. But if you haven't, don't worry about it. The atomic number for lithium, might have had to go back, but that was 3. The atomic number 11 is sodium. So Na or sodium. And 7 metals, this isn't something we really talked about today, but it hopefully would be something you remembered from last time. So for that, we have lithium, beryllium, sodium, magnesium, aluminum, potassium, and calcium. And the number of elements in each of the first 3 periods. Period 1 has 2, period 2 has 8, and period 3 has 8. This 288 will come up in the future, and it will be numbers that you remember. All right, so if you need to, go back through over, have a look at, go back, rewind the video, make sure you understand everything on this before we move on to lesson 2.